Thank you everyone for joining. What I'll do today is go through a quick PowerPoint just to highlight how all the components of the BI360 suite would fit within your environment and spend the actual demonstration itself, where I'll show you examples that we have. So to start off, BI360 is really in 4 key areas: reporting, planning, dashboarding, and data warehousing. And what you'll see is the report design happens in Excel, but it's Excel with drag and drop capabilities, and it's linked to your database. We also have an ad hoc reporting layer for quick on-the-fly analysis. And from an execution standpoint, you're going to be able to execute in Excel, on the web, through our web portal, and we have mobile apps, both in Google Play and in the Apple Store. From a distribution standpoint, there's a device that has automated push, so you can schedule the sending out of these reports and converting them to PDFs as necessary. Now also, the planning module, very much married to the reporting, where you'll actually start by creating a report and then turn it into an input form. Dashboarding, so you can see all the data on the web, and a data warehouse. And the last slide here, before I get into the demo itself, is going to illustrate how all of those components would fit within your environment. So over on the left-hand side, what I see is a live from Dynamics component. So for any of you running GP, AX, what we've delivered is truly a live off the ERP tables reporting tool, which means when you post a journal entry, you'll immediately see that in the reporting tool. Now, for the users that are familiar with Management Reporter or FRX, this tool actually also does subledger reporting, so you're going to be able to access all the modules that you have in, again, either GP or AX. And what that means, if you want to drill back into subledger, if you want to run a vendor report, you're going to be able to do that. Now, what a lot of users come to us and say is, this is great, but I really have other data sources that I also need to report on. Perhaps they have a payroll system, perhaps a point of sale. What you can do is load all of that data into our data warehouse, and this is typically a word synonymous with long deployments, implementation, but in our case, it's really a SQL Server-based data warehouse with a friendly user interface, so your users can create hierarchies. This is where we can handle consolidations, eliminations, allocations, and multi-currencies. And again, using the same exact Excel-based reporting tool, you're going to be able to create reports across all of your data sets. Now, once you're done with reports, you add some functionality and turn them into input forms. And that's the planning component, which is anything you're currently doing in Excel, we can replicate. Because again, it is an Excel add-in. So all the formulas and formatting functionality still exist. And then the last component here, you can view all of that data on the web. And what that is, from a technical perspective, is just an IIS server that you guys have either on-prem or hosted, where you can go in and you can view all the reports, drill into data, you can budget and forecast, and view dashboards. So what I'll do in our demonstration is I'll actually start with this component, which is, how is an end user going to see all this after you're done implementing? Then I'll go in and build a report from scratch. This is going to be more from the mindset of, maybe the accountant that's building a report. Then I'll go in, show you a few more reports, and finish with the Q&A. Now, before I begin, 2 more key points about our suite. One is, as I'm going through this, you don't have to buy the entire suite at once. When you're looking at this, you might say, this is great, but I really just want reporting right now. So you can do that as a phase 1, And then as your company scales, if you think it's necessary, you can add the planning and dashboarding components later. So this is absolutely modular in the way you can purchase and deploy the solution. And then secondly, I realize this is a lot of information, and the purpose of this demo is just to give you a general perspective of our tool. And, you know, from the looks and feel of it, if you can see how it can make your business more efficient, how it can make your life easier by automating, it would be a good time to reach out to us, and we'll do a more specific demo. And we have a lot of vertical demos in healthcare, in retail, and 12 other industries. So towards the end of this, I'll leave the contact information, and then you can reach out and we'll do a specific demo tailored around your requirements. So this is a perfect time to go ahead and get started with the demo. So to start off, you know, put yourself in the perspective of maybe the CFO or the COO that wants to see the end result. What I'll do here is I'll go to Internet Explorer as the web browser, and you'll have your own URL where you access. And I'll log in here with my credentials. Now this is actually really important because the security setting that you apply in BI360 is carried across all of our applications. And this security is going to be separate from your dynamic system. And if I'm logging in here as a sales executive, for example, and the only thing I'm limited to seeing is the sales department, that's going to be the only thing I'll be able to see. And also, you know, since it's unique to the username, what you can do is scroll through all of the various templates here, and you can toggle certain ones as favorites. And then you can go into the favorites folders and see the ones that are most relevant to you. Also, you can switch views out, and you can customize this by having your own logo and so forth. Now let's go over here, and on the left-hand side, you know, what we see is a way you can organize all of your templates. Now the way it works here, in this demo example, we actually have a component where you can input your strategy. Based on those strategies, you can initiate tasks. And this is a newer feature we added, and seems simple, but you know, really a lot of people meet, they kind of have something on the board, but they don't have a system to capture what they're going for. And this is a way you can do so. Now, after you're done, you know, setting your strategy, you can go through and forecast. Then we have a separate folder where all of your budgeting templates reside with full workflow that I'll show. Then you can view, you know, the reports off the budgeting, because we have that reporting and budgeting piece in the same tool. And then maybe go in here and do some analysis. So let's pretend what I actually want to do is start with the forecasting piece. Okay? Then I'll go in, just show you a few budgeting templates that we have, and then do a report and dashboard. So the CFO perhaps can go in here and open up this Departmental Forecast. What I'll do here, I'll start with a really simple example, okay, and then I'll get more complex in its nature, just to make sure you guys completely understand the concepts around this tool. So if I'm looking at this, you know, based on security setting, I'll only have the specific companies that I'm assigned to, specific departments. These are referred to as parameters in our system. Point is, you pick the parameters, you expand, and in this template, you know, provided you 9 months of actual for finance and accounting, because that's the department we picked, for corporate US, because that's the company we picked, and you can go in and input data. Now, I'm a solution architect, so I have previous data that I entered, but for you guys, this would be completely blank. Now, after I'm done, I can click this Store Data button, and what that does is actually pushes data now back into that data warehouse. Now, for the users that are coming off of Excel, you're probably thinking, all right, you know, I immediately want to see the benefit of switching to a tool like this. And here's a really simple example. let's say it's now October and you want to reforecast for the remainder of the year. Well, if you did it in Excel, you had to save as and do a new template. You'd have to copy the data, probably from Management Reporter, into this column, and then you'd have to do that for every single department and company. Whereas with our tool, because it's connected to that reporting piece, you can go in, pick up a new month. I can also go in and change the department. Click a refresh button, and this template will now automatically execute for HR and will let you reforecast for November and December, and filled up October with actual data. Now, you're probably saying, great, I see how it pulled in actual data, and that will definitely save me time. It'll create a more accurate process because I'm not copy and pasting anymore. And now multiply that for every department. You don't have tens of Excel spreadsheets. You have one, linked with reporting and forecasting. Now, what I want to do now is go back a bit and say, all right, well, I'm done forecasting the year. Perhaps what I want to do now is create some of my budgeting templates. This is going to be limited based to what your access is. In our example, I'm an administrator, so I have access to all of the templates. Let's just go through, look at payroll. What I'll do is I'll expand this out a bit, and this is probably something just the budget manager would have access to. So a budget manager can go in here, look at the taxes that are used for payroll, maybe look at the capital for your CapEx form, travel assumptions, and anything else. Really important, what I'm showing you is just put any drivers you want here. Maybe you have macroeconomic conditions that you want, and you want to put low, mid, high, and have those allocate or use to calculate your balance sheet or P&L. Whatever the case is, the concept is as follows. As a budget manager, let's say, hey, my FICA rate is actually going to change to 8.55 instead of 7.21. I'll click the Store Data button. It gets stored back into the database. And, really, what's the benefit of storing it back to the database? Well, the benefit is the person that's in charge of his or her department is now going to be able to go in here, and let's say I just want to pick up finance and accounting for this example. If you do more of a bottom-up approach, click this refresh button, and now when I expand it out, the way this works is everything in yellow is what your end users are going to input, and then everything else is going to calculate on their behalf. If I go in here and let's say, for example, this person, Colby, is going to get promoted to VP of Finance. I can change the title here. Okay? I can also add new employees. And this is a very neat functionality because when you actually hire people, it's going to go through and replace it with the names itself. Now, what I want to do for Colby is, let's say, he's going to take on the role of VP of Finance in March. I can set an end date. So maybe, we know in November he's going to be taking a leave of absence. I can input his salary here. I can say, this is great, but if he does really well, we want him incentivized to come back. So maybe in July, we'll increase his salary by 10%. All of these fields you'll be able to customize. This is just an example of one payroll template that we used. And as I previously mentioned, we do have these examples by vertical. And then maybe here, also give him a dollar increase and say, yes, Colby is going to be eligible for benefits. I can scroll down here if I want, and then for my part-time employees, if I plan to hire someone new, I can go in and say, great, I want to hire a new accountant. Here's his annual salary, and then it'll say to be hired number 6. As I input this, over on the right-hand side, if we look at Colby, you see the salary starting in March because that's the position, and you in December. And if we continue scrolling over, the system automatically calculated the compensation, and for the taxes and benefits for the FICA FUTA SUTA, notice how it now used that 8.55 FICA rate instead of 7.21, right? And that's because the budget manager previously made that change. What's the benefit here? The benefit is you don't have links that break in Excel. You're now using that 8.55 rate to calculate everyone's taxes and benefits. And here you can see the FICA, FUTA, SUTA, workers' comp, and headcount. Now, if your company has more of a top-down approach, if I look at this template, just to show you kind of how flexible it is, let's say we want to pick finance and accounting. We also want to see HR and administration. When I click this refresh button, and sure, let's just keep the changes here, and I expand this out, okay, what I see is this template actually increases to say, here's administration, and it's going to store to the general ledger here, specific for the administration department. Scroll down, here's finance and accounting. It's full-time, part-time employees. It's going to store to the GL, and HR, full-time, part-time employees, and stores to the general ledger. So very flexible in the way it just blew out those departments. And I'll actually go through and illustrate how it was created in a later example. But for now, let's say, that's great, we're done with our personnel, we're done with our CapEx, maybe we're done with some of our more operational-based templates. What we want to do is store our operational expenses. And I'll go in, expand this out a bit, and this gives you, 12 months that you can store for next year. Over on the right-hand side, if I scroll over, because I picked up October, right, as a parameter, it gave us 10 months of actual and 2 months of forecast. And guess where that forecast is coming from? It's actually coming from the very first template. And again, not using links in Excel, everything's stored into a database and retrieved. And if I scroll down here, if I did input some salary expenses for the Department of Administration, it would appear right underneath here. And then when I go through and enter my operational expenses, that's all going to flow down here so you can see total expenses budget to your expenses for last year. Now, you're probably saying, this is great. I got the fact that you could just input data. You can use basic Excel formulas. But what else can you do? And maybe for special events here, what I want to do is I want to go in and add some line item details. Okay? So what actually makes up special events? I can say add, and right underneath it, I can add comments. So maybe this was a special event for my sales team, and it happened in, let's say, January, so we put $1,000, and we had another one in June, so we put $4,000. You can go in and keep adding line item details that are going to roll up into special events. Conference for users, add those in, and as I do that, you can go in and see that January is now 4,000. Okay. Click OK. Then I'll go in and click that Save Data button. Okay. What else? Let's say for other supplies, we don't need that level of detail. Really what we want to do for other supplies is just use historical trending. Again, I can right-click, and from in here, you can spread. So maybe perhaps what we want to do is do a history query. And by the way, if you are a seasonal business, you can also do it based on winter, summer, seasonality spreads. You can do a custom spread. I'm just showing you one of many. Point is here, I'm querying the history, clicking apply, so you can see it's added. And maybe, I know we had a really strong year, and we're going to buy a lot of other supplies. So I actually want to increase that by 8%. When I click apply, the system automatically goes in and increases each month by 8%. Click OK, and then again click that Save Data button. Now there's another button that's actually grayed out, which is this check mark, and that's for workflow. Once people are done with their templates, they can click the check mark, and what that does, it creates a workflow. So if I look at same template from a administrator's perspective, what they can see is the ability, I open this up a bit, to see who's inputting data, which are the users, what are the various templates, and they can set a start end date so an end user cannot input after a certain time. If I click that Save Data and actually store back into the database, which is the check mark, it would say for approval for the administrator, and they can go in and approve it. You can also hide certain templates. So say perhaps this person, which wouldn't be a demo user, it'd actually be one of your business users, they don't want to, you don't want them to be able to input data for assumptions and personnel. Well, those two templates are going to be hidden. Demo user 4 clearly hasn't done anything with their templates yet, so all of those are opened. Okay? Great way to manage who inputs data, when they input, and you can manage version controls here as well. Okay? And then the last thing here that I do want to show, directly within here, you can have like quick dashboards, so people are actually using the tool more. A lot of times budgeting is a very stale process, but maybe adding something like this to your operational expense, or you have the expenses by department, the top expenses, you can click here, right, for sales and marketing, and you can see the trending change right underneath it. Okay. All right, so that's a perfect segue into our next step, which is write everything in the same tool. That's really, if I could take a step back, a huge value proposition for your business users. You have one place to view your strategy, view your tasks. You have one place to forecast, one place to create your budget, and then same platform you go to actually analyze all of your information. So view historical reports and dashboards of your data. So let's go in here in the analysis component, and right below, we see a few benchmarking dashboards, then getting, more detailed, maybe something for the CFO, something showing your revenue, and so on. Okay? And now a lot of tools in the space that are doing these, but what we really haven't seen it is a tool that combines dashboards with formatted reports. And here's where you see a P&L, balance sheet. Yeah, these are things you can do in MR, but what you clearly can't do is a sales report, AR, AP, so all of your subledger reports here. HR, and like I said, you can combine other data sources. And here we even have a report that we pumped Google Analytics data into our warehouse. Now let's look at one of these. Let's pretend what I want to do is actually look at a P&L. Okay? And I'll expand this out a little bit. Again, I choose my parameters here. I can see as ran for corporate US as a company. And by the way, this is just a parameter for demo purposes. For you, it could be department, product line, division, whatever you use. And subsequently, when I actually built the report, you'll get to see how to create those parameters from scratch. Anyways, this is run for corporate US for the month of July, gives you the revenues and expenses. If you add a new account in your ERP system, say add account 40035 in between here, okay, it's actually going to automatically appear when you click the refresh button. And that's because what you'll see is we use expanding rows and columns. But, since we're focused on the end user right now, let's say you're not sure why this is almost $6 million. What you can do here, and the same applies for your budgeting templates, you can right-click and see the summary, the roll-up information, and the detail if you want to see subledger, such as journal entry, AP, AR, and so on. And the way it looks is you click, and it goes through and fetches the underlying data in your ERP system. So go back here, and you're probably saying, great, but what if I do want to pump this back into Excel? What you can do is click a share button. This provides a QR reader. You can scan on your phone to get the report. And what I'll do is I'll go in and say P&L, and I'll just do testing, click the save button, and you can see that the download was completed. Okay? I'll come out of here, go back to my desktop to open that P&L. Okay? And what you'll actually see, because this report was originally created with our Excel add-in, if you go in and right before month end, you know your product revenue is going to grow to 1.3 million. When I click enter, all the data here changes as well. And that's because if I look at it, all the formulas that were originally created in Excel were retained in this spreadsheet. But now you're saying this is great, but what if I do want to run it for a different company or a different month, like similar to what you kind of showed me with our budgeting templates? Well, back on the portal, what you can do, if I collapse out of here, is say, hey, I want to run this for Corporate Asia now, same report, and I want to run it for the next month, which is August. By the way, as I'm clicking this, you can see all the previous templates are appearing over here on the left-hand side. Really neat because you can actually toggle between them and compare them really quickly. If I want to compare Corporate US to Corporate Asia here, I can do that. But now, now that I ran it for, actually this one just now, now that I ran it for Corporate Asia in the month of August, I can clearly see that it gave me the revenues and the expenses specific for this month. Now this is great, kind of gives you the numbers of it, but every time we kind of go through these dashboards, your executives always say, hey, well, let me look at those things. And that's really, really powerful because you can go in and say, this is great, these are numbers, but now I want to see my revenues illustrated in graphs. You can scroll down right beneath here, okay? So I'm going to expand this out a bit. And, this is loosely based on our business, but again, if you're a healthcare company, for example, you can make this so it's by provider, by hospital, by specific treatment center. You can do any operational dashboards. This is just an example. So to go with it, since we were looking at the revenue and the P&L, here we see our revenue dashboard. It gives you, loosely based on our business, we're a software company, so it gives you product sales, service, and right below it you can see the trends. And point here is that you can interact with your dashboards. So if I just want to see Corporate US, notice how all of the dashboards underneath here change. Okay? Again, click, and I can see them change. And you'll build your own logic in here. Here's a pie chart, and we say, hey, which company had, which quarter had the most revenue? And we'll say, what about Corporate Asia? Click, and you can see that 28% of the revenue came from the fourth quarter. Okay? But you'll create your own analysis. And then maybe one last dashboard that I will show you. Here we took Yahoo Finance data and pushed it into our warehouse and made analysis for your company, some industry averages, and maybe 2 other competing companies in the space. Okay? And next year, instead of creating a new benchmark, you would simply go in, pick the new year, click refresh, and it would now give you a brand new dashboard. Now this is great, from an end user's perspective, but maybe what you want to see is, hey, how was a sales report such as this built? That you can pick different months and companies for. Or, how was this AR report built? And by the way, since we're here, pretty neat. What you can do is you can look at a dashboard here, right, where you see the receivables and payables. You can click, let's say, Corporate US and see the receivables change. Then you can go in here and say, hey, all right, this looks high. Let me scroll down and look at an actual report. Okay? You can go track that vendor. You can also use the search button, and then you can click a link, and it can actually open the invoice. And that's where, we have integrations to the popular popular document management systems. And if you have it on a shared file too, you can always go in and look at the invoice directly from the portal here. Okay. And that's really what I want to do next, is take a look at, hey, what's the level of complexity associated with building this? So everything we looked at so far, just to summarize, from an end user's perspective, you log in with your credential. Based on that, you'll only be able to see the specific departments, companies. And by the way, our security can even get as granular as accounts and journal entries. And the security is separate from your ERP system. So a lot of times, users using this tool don't have the license for GP and AX, and that's completely fine. And users are going to be able to go in, toggle certain things as favorites, organize everything. You as an administrator can manage that, by the way. If you don't want users to create a bunch of folders here, you can limit them. The point is, you're really giving the end user the ability to view his or her own reports, create and view dashboards, and interact with them to see graphs of their data, and consistently forecast if you have that process, and then have your budgeting process, both operational and financial, with workflow and dashboards showing how the data changes all in one place. Okay. Now let's log out and let's actually build a report. And by the way, before I do, as I mentioned, we have a lot of other verticals. So what you can do when you request a demo, if you, for example, you're in healthcare, you can go and view some of this immediately. So you can see a patient satisfaction dashboard, supplier, some bill to rates, and you can definitely get things specific to your industry. But what I want to do now is take a step back and say, hey, all right, this is great, but really what I want to do is build a report from scratch. And like I said, we have a live integration to all the Dynamics products, and we can integrate other ERP systems as well. For this example, I'll just do a report live off of Great Plains. What I immediately see when I open Excel is there are going to be two tabs, Planning and Reporting. And actually, from a knowledge perspective, 90% of everything you need to know for our tool is based on reporting, because you create a report, then turn it into an input form. And that turning into an input form is relatively straightforward after the report's created. If you do have an existing Excel template, you can select New Current, Contain. We'll select New Blank. Okay. And this does have a SQL output for the IT guys to track, but really, what you should immediately see when we go in here and pick up GP, and we're just picking up the Fabricam test database that Microsoft has, and what you should see, all the SQL table names are translated into simple terms. So you don't need any IT knowledge to create reports. It should be pretty straightforward. And here's an example. You can see finance. You can open up summary. You can see account string, postings, period, and so on. Now, for those of you that are using Management Reporter, immediate difference here, you're not just limited to financial. You can also see all of the other modes here. Okay? So purchasing, field service, whatever you currently use in your system. Now, what I'll do is go in and let's just say, hey, we want to build out a really simple trial balance. The account, maybe we want to see the description, and we'll do the year-to-date, last year-to-date, along with the variance here. Add some bold. I'm not going to spend a lot of time formatting here, but what you should immediately see, everything you know in Excel you can use, which actually cuts down the barrier to learning this tool tremendously. Where you go in, and as long as I know very, very basic Excel, I can use that, both for formulas and formatting. Now you're probably saying, Alex, this is great, but what am I purchasing, right? I have Excel. And here's what you'll see. Everything's connected to this layout editor, which is where you're going to manipulate your data. I'm just doing a super simple report off a trial balance, and all the concepts that you're going to learn right now, you can leverage with these other modules. Now, I'll go and open up account string, give myself a little more room, and this will automatically have your own segments because of that live integration we have. In our example, we'll pull in natural account and create a selection group on the row. And there's only three. There's row, column, and sheet level. So when we create that selection group on the row, we'll go into our layout editor, click the magnifying glass, and this looks directly back in this example in GP, and you can cherry pick the accounts you want. Okay? Now, what's the huge benefit, and where does the automation come in? If you look at this, if you go in and add account 8555 in Great Plains right now, it will automatically appear in our reporting tool. And that's because we use ranges and control the row. We were built after 2007, so we actually control the XML of Excel. And to the best of my knowledge, we're really the only tool on the Gartner list that has that control in Excel. And what I want to do here now is getting back to the report for best practices. What if you add account 888? What I want to do is go and say 89999. Okay. Click OK. And now if I want the description for that account, it should be pretty logical. I grab the description, scroll down, maybe I want to see the period change, the activity, drag and drop, and then really the last step here in terms of concepts, I somehow need to differentiate year to date from last year to date. And the way I do that is I'll go to my functions in BI360. And these are all pre-built functions. You can build your own as well. And I'm using year to date to last year to date. You do the exact same thing if you want to do, say, quarter one of this year compared to quarter one of last year. Drag and drop, year to date, drag and drop, last year to date, and the variance here is just an Excel calculation, right? So year to date minus last year to date. If I had something more complex, like an if statement, VLOOKUP, HLOOKUP, absolutely fine. Last step here, maybe create a total, make sure we actually balance for the accountants in the room, and add some minor formatting in Excel, right? And we'll say, great, we want that to be our total. Let's go in and let's take a look at this so far. So, what we do now is be able to go in and select a period, and what I'm doing here is creating a parameter for it, so I can select a period at runtime. Okay. What is runtime? Well, really important. What we're doing now is from the perspective of someone building these reports from scratch. The point is you build them once, and then you're able to reuse the same report over and over. Now let's look at that concept. I'll go in here, click this run button, and perhaps I want to see June of 2014. That's where the data is in Fabricam. Click this run button. It will go in and automatically give me all my accounts, descriptions, year to date, last year to date, along with the variance on the row here. Okay. Scroll down, all with a total. If I add a new account, say I'll go in next month and add 6535 in GP. All I do is go in, now it's July, click Run button, and that row will automatically appear because, again, we control row, column, and the sheet level, which I'll show you momentarily. Now, on the web, you kind of saw me drill into the summary. What you can also do, and this is where I think all the accountants in the room are going to have a smile on their face, you can scroll down and pick one of these accounts, and you can actually drill into the subledger. So if I want to pick an account, right-click, go in, and instead of drilling into summary, I can drill into details. Okay. Now I see, if I scroll over here, the customer name, customer number, the vendor name, batch number, original source, and so on. And the question always comes up, hey, can I customize it? What if I just want to see vendor, debit, credit, or something? Absolutely, right? You can customize this. Last step, hey, what if I want to run it for a different division? Well, you'd go in and you would create a parameter. So it should be pretty straightforward, but same thing as I did with period. Maybe I'll go in and say, great, create a parameter. This is just formatting, by the way, but what you should see, nothing technical. And I'll actually create the sheet per value, pretty powerful little button. What it's going to do is every time you select more than one division, it'll give you a separate tab for it. So I'll open up, add this for description purposes. I'll run this, and if I now just want to see sales, click run, I'll just see sales data, right? If I go in and I want to see service installation, I'll just see service installation. By the way, all this is protected, so if your user goes in and makes a mistake, right, all you do is click this run button again, and it will reappear. Because again, we control the underlying logic behind Excel. And that little button, if I go in here and say I want to see these 3 divisions and run it, it'll actually give me one tab for administration, another one for accounting, and another one for sales here. So this is one way you can see your reports in Excel. If you don't want to go that portal route, if you're looking at this and saying this is great, the portal piece, but maybe that's a phase 2 or 3, completely fine. You can deploy this in Excel like this as well. So 2 options, right? You can have your users go in here in Excel, pick up parameters and run it, or you can go in and upload this report to the portal. Okay? And if I save the booklet, you can go in now and it'll upload to that portal. So your user can just log in with their credentials and see the report. Okay? This is just one example. If you're going the Excel route, which you can do for both reporting and budgeting, you can, if I go into this planning, create reports and templates that are much more. And all of these, by the way, as I'm going through, are templates that you can leverage. No tool is as easy as just drag and drop and immediately it works. But these are all really good starting points. And as I mentioned, we have these broken out for various industries. And here's a report that I always love to show. What this is actually going to do, if I look at this, all of this right now, payments, sales, is in essence gibberish, right? And that's because it's going to pull data based on the parameters you select. If I look at this news tab, right now it says description, sees modern improvement, period end. Doesn't really say anything for profit, revenue, or any of this other stuff. And that's because as a business user, you'll go in here and you'll say, I want to see corporate US, I want to see actual to budget, and let's maybe just change this to see, September data. Click run, and based on those parameters, this report is now going to fill up with numbers on every tab, and all of those numbers are going to flow into an executive summary for the business. And now I can see, corporate US sees great improvement in the month of September. You can see how the profits were, the revenues, the customers, products, payable, and receivable. And if you're wondering where it gets these numbers, and they're just if statements in Excel, right? But again, the benefit is you create this once, and then when you go below 20, it'll say the word week, okay? Without you having to manually type anything in. And here now we see just a quick chart in Excel, maybe trend, 12-month rolling trend as of September, P&L. We saw how it expanded on the row here, but you can also expand on the column. So here it gives you 9 months of actual. And that could be expanded by department, division, anything else you want in the column like that. Cash flow statement, balance sheet, a few more just charts in Excel, maybe a sales report where you can click and see the salesperson, date they sold it, quantity, unit price, top 10 vendor payments, receivable, and so on. But again, right, benefit, if we look at a simple report like this, it's always going to give you the top 10. If you go in next month, the Castle and Resort is no longer in the 10th place. Maybe there's another customer that supersedes that. You'll now see that new customer. Okay. Last thing I wanted to show, and then I'll leave the last few minutes for Q&A. We have an ad hoc reporting tool that we released, which is very flexible. Really the point is, for those of you that use SmartList, it's very easy to learn, quick drag and drop, and I'll show you in a matter of minutes how to use it conceptually. So here we're again just looking at GP. We have access to finance, which we used, but let's go in now and let's just do something different. Let's look at the purchasing module. The concept here is you drag the fields you want to see into the white space. Step 1. You filter them. Step 2, you organize the data. Step 3. I'll go in and say we want to see the vendor name. I'm double clicking. You can also drag and drop. And maybe I want to go in here, give myself a little more room here to see. Maybe I want to go in here and see the voucher number, document type. Maybe I want to see the document date, document number, due date, and the current amount, for example. Click this refresh button, and it will automatically give me all the data in the database. Step 2, I actually want to filter it, right? So right now I'm seeing all of the periods, right, in the database. And here I can even show you. If I put in period, I see all of them, right? Period end here. Really easy to move this stuff around, by the way. Okay. So I see all of them. But let's say, hey, I don't want to see 2017. I don't want to see 2016. I just want to see the first few months of 2014. Okay. By the way, I'm sorry about that. It's not current amount. It's actually document amount here, which you can replace, right? Great. So what I'll do here is I'll create a filter for this. I'll go and say I want to see posting periods, just filter. Step 2, pretty straightforward. You'll go in and say, hey, I want to see maybe the first 6 months of 2014. Click refresh, and the data is now filtered. And last step is, hey, I want to organize some of this stuff. If I go in and expand this, I can actually see now the months on the column level. If I want to group the vendor, I can do that and then do totals. So now I can see it by vendor for the months I selected. Okay. Yeah, and everything else is just an iteration of those concepts. If I look at all these vendors and I just want to see a travel company and attractive office system or something like that, again, drag and drop, go in here, a travel company, attractive telephone, click refresh, and I just now see these 2 vendors. Okay, so I want to see the vendors on the column level, like you saw with the dates. Go in, boom, and now I see the 2 vendors side by side. As a company, we're a little over 1,500 customers based in Los Angeles. And we're really the only one with an integration to Dynamics, and that controls Excel on the Gartner Magic Quadrant. It's our 3rd year on it, and as a company, we grew a little over 50% in 2015. So a lot of growth, and we're self-funded company, but we're really marketing ourselves and trying to organically kind of take over the BI market. And some of our customers, for those of you guys that are local, the Lakers, Dodgers, most of the sports teams here. Bond Consulting is a certified partner. We've worked with them on 2 deals. They're great. Can't say enough good things about them. So, David and I work really closely together. So feel free to reach out to any of us for a follow-up demo, if you have any questions, and so forth.